What do you think the role of swag is in enrollment marketing? Why do you think it's important?
Well, there's a few things that I want to do with my swag. I mean, one obvious thing is that I want to keep my name in front of people. One of the main reasons I'm giving them a view book is I want to just keep my name in front of them. I'm already on their mind. They're already thinking about me, but I want them to be thinking about me regularly, all the way up to the point that they apply and even past that. The more my name stays in front of them, the more likely they are to consider me seriously as they're making that yield decision. So how is it going to be sticky? When I'm giving them something useful, it's going to be sticky. If it's some combination of useful or cool, we think about cool because like what's cool for us? It's the long sleeve t-shirt, it's the hat, it's the hoodie, it's that kind of thing.
Hello, humans. This is Emily Smith. You're here for the weekly Vinedown. This week, I'm joined by PJ Woolston, who's the Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management at IU Indianapolis. PJ, welcome to the show. I'm super thrilled to have you on.
Thanks, Emily. So fun to talk to you.
PJ, I don't know if I've ever told you this, and I'm going to tell you this like in a live moment on the show. I knew who you were before we met. I actually observed you at a conference doing behavior that I truly did not understand. And it wasn't like mean-spirited in my observation. It was genuinely confounding curiosity because what I was seeing was, I'll never forget, this was in Miami at the AcroSem conference, and I watched you were at another school at a time, go to all of the vendor booths and handle all of the swag. And I was like, okay, who is this guy? I looked you up. I was like, Enrollment Management. I think I saw your name tags. It was like PJ Enrollment Management. And I finally figured out, I was like, okay, this guy is in a leadership role at this school. What is the deal with this guy in swag? Do they not pay him enough money that he needs the stress ball and the socks and the thing? And what I didn't realize was you were conducting research. You were doing a whole thoughtful, curious exercise about swag. And I had no idea. And now I know that it is a huge interest of yours and hopefully something we can chat about in the show today.
Huge interest of mine, and not even just swag. I get a lot of sideways glances at college fairs too, because I love to go to the college fairs and just troll the aisles for the same reason. Look at the materials that everyone's printing. I've got, my you can imagine after a career of this, a box of my favorite things. Some of them are my favorite things because they're just incredible examples of really good recruitment marketing. Some of them are my favorite things because they're just so terrible. They're just such a bad match to the message or the institution. I love doing that.
I can't wait to hear you about some of the particularly good and bad things you've seen. But my first question is how do you decide what to keep? And do you have a whole closet of things that you look at in your home?
I definitely have a closet of things, have a cupboard of things. A lot of it is intuition, just what speaks to me. What do I think is going to resonate? A lot of it I like to bring back and test. I've got 4 teenagers at home, so micro focus groups on demand. And that's a lot of fun because sometimes I'm looking for a reaction from them. I think I'm going to get a rise out of them one way or another. They'll do something completely different that I didn't expect. And all of a sudden, I've got a lot more clinical material to work with than I even thought I would.
Right. Well, you actually sent me something that I have used. You sent me a very lightweight, long sleeve hooded shirt, which I have worn on many bike rides. That's an interest you and I have in common. And I was sort of I didn't get it. I was like, okay, this is just one more long sleeve shirt. And then I was, on this bike ride. It started at 0 dark 30. It was pretty cold. I was wearing my IU Indianapolis, excited to go to college shirt. And I was like, okay, I get it. It's not super heavy. I'm not sweating. It's keeping the sun off my shoulders. This is a transitional layer. I was like, dang, PJ, you're right. I get it. So I'm curious if you'll talk a little bit about some of if we get in a time machine and sort of fast forward about 20 years, what are some of the current innovations that we are looking at now that feel really innovative that might seem antiquated in that time moving forward?
I think a lot of what we give out is sort of cutting edge, sort of innovative. We do a lot of print on demand for merchandise too, not even just printed material. And I think that we feel really good about what we're giving out to people, kids in particular, because they want this stuff. And I think about the t-shirt as a classic example. It's a little bit confounding to me because everybody gives out t-shirts. And, personally, I'm convinced that nobody wants another t-shirt. How many t-shirts do you have in your drawer from some random 5K you signed up to run or walk that you maybe wore once, but it's it's dead in your drawer? And I ask kids every year, our incoming class, I'm like, yeah, but those t-shirts we sent you, we gave you, right? And they're like, sure, it's cool. It's a t-shirt. So they actually like them. But I think like that long sleeve t-shirt is a really great example. I think the long sleeve t-shirt is just one of the best examples of swag that is sticky
Mm.
because for a little bit extra money, you get so much more utility out of it. Like, what can you use a long sleeve t-shirt for? Like, that's good in any kind of weather. You can carry it with you because it's portable. You can throw it on when you're a little bit chilly. You can take it off if you're a little bit warm. You can roll up the sleeves. And we don't do it because it's just like what, $1 more per piece, which adds up pretty quickly. But I'm always looking for stuff that's sticky, and it's going to be sticky if it's some combination of useful or cool. And useful is way stickier than cool.
You know what? You're right. I'm like a pretty ruthless editor of things. Like I don't have a lot of dead weight in my drawers, like what things I keep, but I did keep that because it was different enough. Like I will jettison a 5K t-shirt. Like I don't keep that stuff around. So I did keep that one. It was quite sticky. And I'm curious, like, of the things that you are really intentional about, like, in creating the swag, like, what do you think the role of swag is in enrollment and enrollment marketing? Like, what do you view it as? Like, when would you deploy it? Why do you think it's important?
Well, there's a few things that I want to do with my swag. I mean, one obvious thing is that I want to keep my name in front of people. This is actually a really good example if you think about publications like the view books that we do. View books,
Mhm.
I think, are a classic example of useless material. It's a little bit, left of swag, but you go to a college fair, everyone's giving out view books. And as you leave the college fair, often you'll find some kind of really large garbage bin by the door. And it's full of what? Like the view books that we all just gave these kids. These kids are literally telling us, this is not valuable to me. This is not sticky. There's no reason for me to keep this. So one of the main reasons I'm giving them a view book is I want to just keep my name in front of them. I'm already on their mind. They're already thinking about me, but I want them to be thinking about me regularly, all the way up to the point that they apply and even past that. The more my name stays in front of them, the more likely they are to consider me seriously as they're making that yield decision. So how is it going to be sticky? That's paper. What about swag? What about that t-shirt that you and a lot of other kids aren't just going to keep for very long, as
Right.
opposed to something that is actually truly useful? And when I'm giving them something useful, it's going to, like I said, it's going to be sticky. If it's some combination of useful or cool, we think about cool because, like, what's cool for us? It's the long sleeve t-shirt, it's the hat, it's the hoodie, it's that kind of thing. But useful means I'm going to hang on to it. So that extends, like, it just opens up your realm so much further than paper or material clothing that you wear. Like, now you can get into some of the programs that you're trying to recruit for, some of the faculty that you're working with. Like, how can I work with a faculty member to build chemistry or science or nursing or humanities or art and produce swag that's related to what they're doing that you're going to hang on to, not because it's a piece of paper, not because it's a t-shirt, but because it's actually related to what they want to study. And it's related to how excited you made them about wanting to study it even further.
Yeah, and you've taken this to, like, really specific examples that you've shared with me over time, like, I think you've got some examples, and I know you're, like, a very passionate musician, and you've created some pieces for some of your music programs, and some of your nursing and healthcare programs, and I'm curious if you can talk about, like, some of the examples of things that you've created that, like, really felt like they landed with that audience instead of, like, things that end up in garbage bags later.
Sure. Nursing's a really easy one to talk about because there are some really easy, relatively inexpensive examples. I mean, how many times have you been to some kind of expo or college fair or something, and they're handing out little flashlights or pen lights or something, and they're usually, pretty low quality, pretty cheap. We do them because we can afford them. It doesn't really reflect very well on us because we become associated by the quality of these products. In nursing, if you think about, like, I'm recruiting sophomores and juniors and seniors who want to go into nursing. And can I
Mhm.
give them, like an actual pen light, like a flashlight that they see nurses use all the time that to check dilation of eyes. But like with that space that you have on the side, like I've got two sides. I can put my college name on there, which I'm going to for sure. Remember, I want to keep my name in front of them. On the other side, what do I put? Like I put 1 to 10 millimeters. It's the kind of standard measuring tool to see like how dilated your eye is. Am I going to hold this up to your eye and go, looks like you're about 4 millimeters? No, but it's just a gauge that I can then teach you how to use. So not only am I giving you like a cool pen light, I'm giving you your first tool as a prospective nurse. Like you're already closer, a better nurse than you were, 10 minutes ago as a junior in high school. And I'm teaching you what's this gauge for. Like you don't need to know the difference between 4 and 5, but at a glance, you can know the difference between 3 and 9.
Right. Right, just to be able to see it. And like, okay, so that's the nursing example. And I, right, like you're allowing the recipient to like envision themselves as if. And what's an example from some of the music programming that you've done that's like a thing that people keep around? Because you shared this with me from the past, and I'm not any type of serious musician. So like you had to explain something that musicians keep with them, and you're like, oh, I can fill that need.
Yeah, I can actually extend the example even further. Like as a musician, I'm a bassoon player, and one of my favorite tools for music is the circle of fifths. It's a circle diagram. There's 12 key signatures. If you think about a piano keyboard and you don't use any of the black keys, you're in C major. And then if you go to the next key in the circle of fifths, you add one black key. That's G major. If you go to the next key, that's D major. That's two black keys, all the way around till you start to take them away and you're back at zero black keys. It's a really gorgeous, iconic image. Like you can Google circle of fifths and see like 100 variations on the image. It's not proprietary to anybody. It's really common knowledge. But like, how can I capture that and put it on something that really resonates, especially with prospective music students? Already, they love this stuff. They're thinking about this all the time. I can put it on a sticker. They've got like some of them have these massive instrument cases and they've got like all kinds of stickers on them. Think the water bottles. We put stickers
Oh,
on water
sure.
bottles. They have way more surface area with the music case. Think about like a spinner. Can I turn it into a spinner and turn it into a game? What key am I going to practice today? You spin it. Yay, C major. Oh no, D flat major. That's five flats. I'm not very good at that. Well, that's part of the tool. And that's just thinking about like the circle of fifths as a shape. Think about like the state of your shape. People love the state of their shape. Like think about that. Like where you live, even if it's like one of the rectangles, like that's
Oh,
a
the shape
really
of your state. You're saying the state of your shape. I'm like, what is the state of my shape?
great.
The shape of my state.
Now, the
Okay.
shape of your state.
My state is very square, but yes, keep going. Yours
Most
is more
most states
interesting.
are not rectangles. There are a few that are rectangles, but even those rectangles, like think about Nebraska, that's pretty much a rectangle, but a really distinctive rectangle. Like how can I capture the shape of the state and really like associate my name with that in a way that makes students think about like, oh, I love where I live. I love this state. I want to capture this image and put it in a sticker on my water bottle, to put it in some kind of iconic way. I'm going to hang on to that because it's beautiful to me and it resonates with me. It's sticky.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, what are some terrible examples of swag that you have either seen or created yourself?
Terrible examples. I can definitely think of ones that I have created that were maybe just a little bit too difficult to deal with. I can think of several program recruitment pieces that I came up with where the idea was to fill a knowledge gap. And basically, I think what I was trying to do was condense a semester onto a sheet of paper. Those haven't landed really well. I'm a huge critic of the stress ball. I think there are so many, like the stress ball is like ubiquitous and it's inexpensive. So we can do that. We can do a three-dimensional image of something and we can give it to people. It's almost like the cheater's version of the 3D print that we
Yeah.
want to do. But like, what are we giving them? Are we giving them like I saw a medical school once that had like a bone that was a stress ball. And like that's cool that I'm giving you a bone that's a three-dimensional image, but like soft bones, is that what I really want to promote? Or, you know, some kind of version of that where like just the fact that you can squish it is bad. Like that undermines your message.
Right. You also, after a conference this summer, you texted me and you were like, Emily, you're like, this vendor at another conference gave out a knife. You're like, it was a multi-tool, which I thought was cool, but then it was a knife. And you're like, I'm thinking about all the people who have gotten to the airport with this knife in their carry-on. And he's like, nobody's keeping the knife, right? I'm like, I
Well,
don't, right, you
this
can't.
was a really, it didn't look like a multi-tool. It was like a really cool keychain, and like I thought it looked cool. I grabbed it for later, and then I drove home because I was only a couple of hours away from where we were. But then I got home and I pulled it out to check it out, and it was a really cool multi-tool. And I thought, how many people like me flew to this place and threw it in their bag and got to security, and they were like, "This person's got a weapon. Why are you
You Why do
step
you have a
over here,
knife?
please, sir?"
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think, like, thinking it all the way through is something that you have talked to me about, like, from the moment that someone, like, picks something up, like, sees something, picks it up, handles it, and then, like, takes it away, what do they do with it? I think those are all, like, really important aspects of, like, how we think about objects, especially, like, I don't take a lot from conferences because I don't like to create trash. Like I don't like to participate in that. And despite my kids being like delighted that I brought them home like a beaver stress ball a couple of weeks ago from a conference, like they were like, "Can you get stuff like this all the time at conferences?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Why don't you?" I'm like,
Yeah, but no.
"You never know." So
Well,
I
yeah, so
have
let me give you an example of, like, a really cheap, like, throwaway swag piece that I've done before that doesn't get thrown away. Think about, like, harmonicas. Like, who needs a harmonica? Like, honestly, who keeps a harmonica? Like, when they pick one up, nobody's gonna keep a harmonica. It's like a cheap piece of plastic, right? It's got my logo on it, so does that undermine me a little bit? Well, in my music recruitment role before, I've taken this harmonica to some of these youth ensembles that are really high quality performing groups, either choirs or orchestras or bands. And as part of my message, I've worked into it. Okay, I'm going to give you each this harmonica and I'm going to invite your conductor back up on stage. What piece are you working on? Now, instead of playing your part on your violin or your trombone or whatever, I want you to sing your part into the harmonica. Kazoo is what I meant.
kazoo.
Kazoo, right? The kazoo is this cheap plastic piece of,
So cheap.
yeah, like it's super
Oh, and
easy
I
for
bet
your,
it's hilarious.
no one wants to hang on to it. But if everybody in the band is now playing on kazoo their part, it sounds hysterical. It's so much fun. The conductor can't keep a straight face. The kids can't even play anymore because they're having such a good time with it. It just sounds so hilarious. And now you go home and instead of like throwing this in the trash because it's just some cheap kazoo that you picked up, it's like a souvenir. It's like a
From that
memory of
fun
like
time you
this
had.
amazing experience that you just had. And somebody, I guarantee you, somebody just took a video of it with their cell phone. So now, like, everyone's going to want to see the recording. You're going to show your parents, you're going to show your friends because it sounds hysterical. And you got the kazoo to prove it.
Okay, you hear that, music recruiters? I want kazoos across America. None of them in my house, please. But yes, kazoo. That sounds hilarious. Okay, so if you're spending all of this time thinking about what makes good swag and you think about like all of this time that it takes to create it, produce it, give it out, how do you measure attribution? Because like swag is a very hard thing to measure attribution because there's nothing that happens. People either take it away and they're delighted or they're not. And I'm curious how you measure attribution for these efforts. How do you negotiate for budget for it? How do you decide to spend on it if you can't really get tight attribution on it?
Yeah. And how do you find out that it actually had an impact on decision? Nobody's going to say, yeah, I came because of the kazoo that you gave me at the
I don't know.
college
The kazoo
fair.
sounds like very impactful to me.
Or the t-shirt. We spend a lot of money on t-shirts, right? And nobody, practically nobody, not nobody. I'm sure there are a few people. I've actually heard a few of these kids, but just about nobody is like, the reason I ended up coming was because of this awesome t-shirt that you gave me.
Right.
So you really have to build into it. How are you going to measure this? And some of this you can do via survey after the fact. And you really need a captured audience for that. So your admitted, not enrolled students, they're not your best bet for finding out what impact your swag had on their decision. You have to battle survey fatigue, or I like to call it survey lethargy. I mean, it's not even so much survey fatigue. We're so overwhelmed, as are our students, that they don't want to answer another survey, especially if all I'm trying to do is figure out how much of your decision was this thing that I gave you. But what am I going to try to find out? I'm going to try to find out, do you still have it? Did you use it? Do you remember getting it? Do you know where it is now? Have you used it since? I found focus groups to be better for this. Like you've got your incoming class, obviously. And so you've got them in different pockets, especially that first couple of weeks of class. It's usually easy to find them a little bit concentrated before they disperse among all their classes. Think orientation opportunities too. And
When they're
how
still
top
like
of
bright and
mind
fresh
is
and
it?
like willing to help you in that moment. Like I think capturing
Right.
them right away is a great point.
And I think like even apparel, like swag that you wear, if you're savvy about it and confident about it, not only can you watch to see whether it pops up in some of the local places where people are gathering anyway, if you anticipate that that's going to be the case, you can flag some of your funders for this. Like who is your CFO, who is your president or your
Mm.
chancellor? If they're going to be at these events too, like your games, for instance, think about like the first set of volleyball games or basketball games or football games that you have in the fall. And you've just given out maybe a really cool shirt or a sweatshirt as things are getting cooler. And maybe from experience that people are going to be wearing these. Well, you're having a hard time getting that funded in perpetuity. maybe just point out, give one to your provost and your chancellor and point out that like, this is really effective. People really like this. When you come to the game on Friday, notice how many people are wearing it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Um, if you had a very limited, like in your role now, covering all of enrollment, if you had a very, very limited budget to spend across print and physical swag, what are the 3 things that you couldn't live without?
Trying to imagine a world in which my budget was very limited. That's difficult to do because I have such an unlimited budget.
Sorry, like, squeeze it down to 3 sorry, squeeze it down to 3 things.
But if I had a limited budget, I mean, I would still do a print piece. I still feel I'm part of the camp that definitely feels like there is a role for that. What is that role? It's, partly with parents, it's partly with students,
Yeah, I
but
wanna ask you more about parents in a sec.
I want to be really careful about I'm going to give students something that they're actually going to want to hang on to. Why am I going to hang on to this view book? View book is the classic example, and maybe so, but like I don't want to do a traditional view book that's 8 or 16 pages and has all the pictures you expect to see. Like I want to give you a reason to keep it. Maybe there are music tools in there like the circle of this. Maybe there are bookmarks that you can pull out, or stickers has become really common and ubiquitous, but like people love them. So I definitely would keep a print piece. I definitely would keep something that you wear. I am a huge fan of shirts and the long sleeve t-shirt because it's the most universal, easiest to wear. I'm not a huge fan of socks. People do like them, but for one thing, like you can't see them very well, so it's hard to advertise with your socks to other people. I want something that other people are going to keep because it's sticky. Even if you don't end up at my school, you go to another college, but you love my shirt so much that you're wearing it there. That's, okay for me.
That's a
I'd rather you
flex.
come to me, right? It's totally a flex. And long sleeve is going to do that better, but something. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a shirt. I've been really surprised at the staying power of bucket hats. Kids really like bucket hats. Well,
Oh,
if they're
man.
going to wear them, then great. That's number 2. And then number 3, I definitely would do some kind of like knowledge gap piece, something informational. Like I would partner with probably either a faculty member who was really enthusiastic, who really wanted to be involved with recruitment and had really great ideas about like, here is how I can reach students.
Hmm.
Or I'm going to pick the program. It's going to be one of my high volume programs that I'm trying to grow. And I'm going to say, look, we have an opportunity to reach like this year, this has been an election year. This has been a rare opportunity, rare in the sense that no one's taking advantage of it to build our political science program. We can lean into nonpartisanship coverage of like the election in terms of the content that I am partnering with faculty. It's their content that we're putting out digitally, in paper, through our campaigns in some way that basically says, look, it doesn't matter how you're going to vote. Here's why you vote. Here's how you decide who to vote for. Like people are thirsting for that stuff. So now just by associating my name to it, I don't even need to talk about here are my application deadlines, do the FAFSA. I don't need to talk about any of that stuff. They're just going to associate, oh, this is a place that is serious about society and civic engagement and political science. Like if you're at all interested in political science, for instance, you got to go there.
Well, that's so interesting. Okay, so I'm hearing you say view book, long sleeve or bucket hat, and then the third thing, we talk about this all the time, and we talk about this in the show about like sort of we all own parts of closing the guidance gap. Like we feel this at College Vine. I think on the college side, you feel this. We talk to folks on the high school side; they definitely are feeling, I think sometimes alone in this, but like I think we all in 3 ways feel really responsible for closing the guidance gap. And what you're saying in this third thing is like, yeah, we want to close the guidance gap, but not just in a general like education about how to get into college way, but in like how can I be really specific about this one program that is maybe kind of a couple levels down from like, here's how you think about college or here's how you build your list. It's like specific to education about this particular program, which you're trying to fill or trying to keep quite high volume. That's really interesting to me, and I'm curious how you view so back on that first one, like on the view books, for example, in that moment where you're watching students and families walk out of high school fairs and all of those view books end up in the trash can, how much do you think the view book is for parents versus for students? Like, do you have a perspective on that? Have you changed the content of the view book to meet any of that different audience?
I haven't targeted parents in particular with a view book. I do have other pieces that I'll target parents with. And I want to be Well, there's two approaches to that. Sometimes I'm really transparent about, hey, you parents, like this is what I'm putting in front of you. It's relevant to you. I'm filling maybe a knowledge gap that you have or a need that you have in terms of information that we're offering. Or, there's that other route where ostensibly it's for the student, but I know it's going to get in front of the parents. And so the message really is for the parents. You have to be careful about that because how do you attribute that?
Right.
But if I could even expand that idea to like the college visit, I think the college visit is a prime example of a wasted opportunity that often involves parents
Mm,
because here we have a family that has taken time out of their day, time off of work often, time out of school usually to come to campus. And what do? We do an information session where we tell them all about our application process. And this is us too. Like we feel like this is important too, but like they know where to find that. So we bore them to tears and then we walk them all over campus. We wear them out physically, and then we sit them down in front of somebody else to talk at them for a while. And their experience and their opinion of the college really comes down to how comfortable was I? Was I able to find parking? Was the weather bad? Was I cold? That's a terrible way to leave an impression
mm.
of a college entirely on that. I want them to come, and especially if I can get them in front of faculty for a hot minute because I have any idea what they're interested in, I want them to have a vision of what it's like to be a student here. If I can put you in front of faculty because I know what you want to study, I don't need the faculty to spend a second on the FAFSA or the application deadline or any of that. They already know all that. We got that covered. I just need you to geek out for like 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever you got. I want the student to leave that experience more excited about what they thought they wanted to study than they were when they got there. Then when they leave campus, they're going, I can't imagine being at any other school. Like this is the place for me. It has nothing to do with how comfortable I felt.
Yeah, right, or like, did I get a snack, or was I marched around in the wrong way? Yeah, I think you're juiced up in all of those ways, and I think that's, like and you're talking about doing this in a very big program. I think a lot of folks out there, like, will forget in this moment that run this enrollment process at pretty big scale, and to say, like, "Yeah, we can reasonably get faculty members in front of students as they visit," feels maybe easy as you say it, but maybe challenging for folks as they do it. How do you maintain good enough relationships with faculty to make that happen?
Well, I'm shooting for a number. I've got a freshman class I'm trying to bring in. I've got an overall enrollment goal that, my chancellor wants to see, and I certainly support that. But, I come from the school recruitment background. As I was a musician, I was a music recruiter for School of Music several times, and I understand acutely that the big number comes from all of the little numbers. So
Mhm.
it's really easy to work with schools or colleges or faculty because they're also trying to get a certain number and I'm trying to help them play the numbers game. And all of that adds up to what I'm trying to get to.
Good point. I mean, I think that's how we, like, focus on, like, a sales number, right? Is you have to chew it up into smaller goals. Okay, I'm curious if you'll get back in your time machine for the last question, and I'm curious if you can sort of in go to the future and go to a world where there is more automation, right? Whether it's through AI or better systems, better processes. And I'm curious what you think, because all of the things that you're talking about, like you said, I'm from this recruitment sort of school of recruitment in my background. You're talking about like these very like low tech, lo-fi ways to build affinity with your brand, whether it's through the viewbook or through particular physical pieces of swag, relationship building with faculty. And I'm curious if you can sort of imagine with me in this like future state, how how the student journey today might seem absurd or inefficient in our future state. I'm curious if you'll talk about that in sort of a future casting way as our last question.
Yeah. And on a baseline, all of the things that we're all working toward as far as like a more seamless experience, we're trying to make the application process faster, smoother. We're trying to connect all of these technologies so that like you don't have to ask for your transcript to be sent to us. It comes when you apply. Like, I mean, we're already doing so much to connect all of that, and we're making huge strides through our systems and technology for sure. If you look 20 years ahead, you certainly think about the pace of technological improvement. I can easily envision a place where like all of that stuff just happens. Someone decides, I'm thinking IU Indianapolis. And then, with what, a few clicks of the button or taps on the phone or whatever, like they're in. Like that part's taken care of. Like we're skipping past all of that part. So now how are they going to decide? It's going to come down to these connections that they've made on a number of levels. Some of it is going to be, a lot of it is going to be based on the program and what they want to study intellectually and how can I connect them with faculty. Some of it's going to be co-curricular or extracurricular. Think about your athletes. Our coaches are going to be a lot better connected. And I think coaches are going to do this too. Coaches aren't going to be about like, okay, what kind of playing time can I promise you? Or are you going to be the right fit for the team? Some of that's always going to be the case, but even coaches are going to be thinking about, okay, how can I make you a better basketball player today as a sophomore in high school? You're going to end up coming to me as a senior when you accidentally explode because I made you a better basketball player in 10 minutes after some game I saw you at. You didn't even have to come to my camp. Co-ed extracurricular, I think, is going to be another connection. Basically, any way that they can connect with our institution, it's going to be hyper personalized in a way that we're not using that word right now. Right now, hyper personalized is the messages that we send you speak exactly to you. We're going to move way past that.
Well, and I think you're calling out too that like right now the process, however inefficient it might be, creates friction, but the friction points offer an opportunity to get to know the student and have the student get to know you. So if you eliminate all the friction points, you have to add back in that
Yep.
relationship building, that affinity building, and that like, okay, I can envision myself as part of this community. I think that's a really good call out. But really excited to see where that goes because the more we automate and the less friction we create, we are also losing some of those opportunities. So it will be really, really interesting to see how we build that back in
Right.
one bucket hat at a time.
Because what happens when I do that, now I'm a senior in high school and I'm thinking about a dozen schools and most of them are waiving application fees. Now I've got a dozen admissions. So am I going to like throw a dartboard to pick the school? No, the school I'm going to go to comes to where I've made those connections because those
Right.
schools have established a connection. They've taken the time to make a real connection with me on multiple levels.
So true. Age old. PJ Woolston, thanks so much for joining us on the Vinedown. I appreciate your time. Folks, we'll see you next time.